next item on the agenda is, looks like it's Makita Hill. And the Planning and Zoning Assistant Director is going to provide a perspective from the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, good evening. As noted in the agenda, item 8D is a summary presentation of the September 2018 baseline ordinance. This ordinance was included in review by the Planning and Zoning Commission, and upon their review, they did recommend to send this ordinance to you for your review and consideration. The ordinance was included along with review of the citizen ordinances in the hope that there may be some material in the citizen ordinances, specifically something that is land use related, that we might be able to include in the baseline as a way of using the baseline as a bridge. I'll just briefly summarize some of the contents that are in this ordinance.
Mr. Chairman, a couple things. Can IT fix what's going on first?
Yeah,
And is there a briefing for the ordinance you're presenting, Mr. Hill? Or is it just verbal?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Block, it is verbal. Don't have a presentation.
I can't stop looking at that.
Yeah. This was not planned to be part of my presentation.
I bet it was.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I'll briefly review some of the aspects of what is proposed in the baseline draft that was reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Commission. As you are aware, this draft does include a description of 2 areas for planning within the county, an area A to the east and an area B to the west. The line is described running north and south from the west of the Rio Rancho Estates area, moving northward to west of the Hema Springs area. Now, I do not have that is the illustration. Also, if I may continue, the area to the west is proposed for administrative review. The area to the east is proposed for conditional use permit review with the county's Planning and Zoning Commission. Now, having said that, the baseline ordinance also proposes one list of materials for both areas. By material, we do not differentiate between one area or another. We simply differentiate how the material is to be reviewed. I will just summarize what some of those requirements are. Aside from an approved state permit from the Oil Conservation Division, the information also includes a noise control plan, road plan, emergency response plan, proof of bond, Surface Owner Protection Act certification, air quality certification, water protection certification. Now, under the water protection certification, there is also a proposal that an operator will conduct a pre-drilled water sample quality test on any public drinking water well within 5,280 feet or 1 mile of the proposed drill site. There are general requirements within the ordinance that include a standard setback distance from homes, school, churches, and cultural resources. These resources are verified by the State Historic Preservation Office. There are insurance requirements proposed in the ordinance. The requirements are set at a maximum of $5 million, while other proposals have been made for more amounts than this. The staff felt that this was reasonable and in the hope that smaller independent operators could participate in the oil and gas development in the county. We do have notification requirements for Native American Nation Pueblo agencies within 3 miles of a subject site also. This is an expansion on the current notification regulations within the zoning ordinance. The baseline ordinance is one that staff has kept in its observation simply because from the beginning, we have maintained that an oil and gas ordinance should be primarily a land use ordinance, and we leave other measures for the State Oil Conservation Division to regulate. We do understand that there are concerns about the state regulations. However, we hear less about the content of the regulations and more about matters having to do with enforcement. As far as the regulations themselves, we are assured that they do provide adequate protection for groundwater issues. I believe that part of the information that has been passed to you was a letter from OCD that specified regulations that talk about how the design of these facilities does protect drinking water. I believe that information was included in your packet. That is the summary I had prepared to present. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Yes.
Makita, did staff study take into consideration substrata, or did you just look from the ground up?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Holden Rhodes, we have placed an emphasis on surface issues consistent with our charge with zoning and subdivision regulations. We did not look at substrata. We have left those issues for the state regulations to cover.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, we're going to move on to comments. Accept comment from representatives from tribal governments who would like to appreciate one representative from whichever entities would like to speak this evening. We're not going to hold you to 3 minutes, but we certainly would appreciate brevity. After you're done talking, we still have a long way to go tonight. There's not a sign-in list, so I'm just going to ask whoever wants to go first, and I'll just ask you what group you're with and keep track, and we'll go from there. How's that work?
Good evening, Chairman and Commissioners. My name is Michael Chavria. I serve as Governor for Santa Clara Pueblo. We're located in the northwestern portion of Sandoval County. Our forested canyon lands are probably that northwestern area adjacent to Valles Caldera. I just don't serve as a governor for Santa Clara, but also serve as a vice chairman for the All Pueblo Council of Governors. And so Santa Clara Pueblo has occupied the Jemez Mountains and surrounding areas since time immemorial. Our cultures and traditions have strongly survived over the years and continue to be passed down from generation to generation. Our culture, religion, and livelihood are very dependent on our lands and natural materials. And Santa Clara Pueblo has approved water quality standards. And as the presentations before us, I know they're very technical, but understanding as a water quality coordinator, the importance of having good quality water and adequate water. And as an example, we don't have good quality water for our chili, our squash, our beans. What happens? They die off. And for us, the majority of our body is made up of water. And so it's very important for Santa Clara Pueblo since 1995, all the waters within the exterior boundaries of Santa Clara are to protect the chemical, physical, and biological integrity of all tribal waters, to promote the health, social welfare, and economic well-being of the Pueblo, its people, and all the residents of the Pueblo. So establishing good partnerships and relationships with Sandoval County is exercising our inherent sovereign right. We have built up the internal capacities and capabilities to now live and have that staff that are educated, knowledgeable, and accountable and worthy for their work. I know in the past, since 2016, the All Pueblo Council has went on record and provided a resolution 2017-16, again demanding Sandoval County Commission with tribal consultation regarding the proposed oil and gas ordinance. And so it's very important, Chairman, members of the commission, that we continue to strive forward in a good collaborative manner. That tribal consultation is very important to understand that the landscape is important to our religion, our culture, and our livelihood. We still live off that land. We still utilize that resource from the plants, the forbs, which are medicinal for our pharmacy, the clothing for our grocery store, but most importantly, our spiritual sanctuary. So it's very important, Chair and Commissioners, to fully understand where we come from. We're open to continue this collaboration of working together to fully understand the concerns of the 10 pueblos that are located within Sandoval County. We're all very unique. We're all sovereign political governments. And the relationship is very important with the local government to continue that energy of moving forward. And so I really appreciate the time tonight. I know we're limited, but I'd like to request that we have more time with the All Pueblo Council of Governors and the county and the commissioners to have more time to adequately address many of the issues that we as Pueblo leadership and our communities do have regarding the various ordinances are being presented to you this evening. So I want to thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to make a comment about meetings. You know, we have reached out to some of the tribes and pueblos and asked for meetings, and some of them have responded to us.
Yes.
And we've met with them. We've met with Santa Ana, we've met with Sandia, we've met with San Felipe, we've met with Santo Domingo, and we're open to do that. Commissioner Agwal and I have been out visiting, so if you can work out a schedule, I'm sure we can make something happen.
Could we make sure that we have their address and notification? We do? Okay. Because we do?
We do, yes.
We do? Okay, thank you.
I guess it would be good to be sure that we have the right contact.
Okay.
I was trying to make some contacts and the emails were bouncing me, and so that's right. So Maria, maybe you could check with this gentleman and be sure that we have the right contact.
Okay, I think I have a business card in my bag, and I can just give you that. So I give you my email and then my contact information.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay.
Young lady will take care.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Whoever wants to go next. And please tell us where you're from. I'm sorry?
Broncos are leading. 35-10, third quarter. Good evening. I said, Kodong Hatno, Anige, She Yahi George Lorito and She. Oh, and seen of that. It's up around 25 miles west of Cuba. Oholcino community. I'm part of the Navajo Nation. I'm the chapter president there at Oholcino, and also the chairperson for the Tri-Chapter. Tri-Chapter consists of 3 chapters coming together: Oholcino, Toleon, Star Lake Chapter, and Counselor Chapter. We're working together to regionalize that area. Since the Navajo Nation is not going to help us, so we're going that route. The 2 studies that was presented here did not include the areas up in the counselors in Oholcino and Torreon area. I think most of the studies wasn't down in this area. There again, we're leaving out the Navajo Nation out again. So that might be something that we might be able to look at, Mr. Agwal. A lot of activities going on the counselor area. Also potentials in the Oholcino area, which is parts of counselors. The BLM is already starting to designate areas for drilling. Not only down here, but out there. There are already in the process of doing that. So that's an area I think needs to be looked at. You know, as Native American, Mother Earth, we protect that. The water is precious to us. The air is precious to us. As I know, up in the council area, all of those three are being destroyed. Just take a trip up there one of these days. If you're going up to Navajo Lake to go fishing, stop by council area, take that one loop. All activities there, and the three that I mentioned is being destroyed up there. We want to protect our culture up there. I'm in close to my 70s. I am culture up there, just like a site. Once I'm gone, that's it. I say to my kids. As mentioned before, people, the sites, they are precious to us. Transportation plan, roads. Again, if you go up in the council area, Ojo Encino area, it is booming. There's no control up there. The Navajo Nation and the county and the state, there's no jurisdiction in that area. So it seems to me like they do what the heck they want to. Again, the Navajo Nation is in Window Rock and in Arizona. We don't get help. So we're looking to the county, the state for help. But there is that reservation line, the jurisdiction issue is there. There's a lot of issues out there. We're caught between two counties, Sandoval County and McKinley County. We're caught between two BLM districts, Rio Rancho and Albuquerque District, or Rio Perco. So we're kind of all in the middle there, so the help is not there. So these are some of the issues that you all need to come and look at. Communication, again, consulting with the local people. We say the Navajo Nation is established in Window Rock. A lot of the information is gone to Window Rock. It stays in Window Rock. It does not come to the local communities, which is the 3 chapters. Decisions are being made in Window Rock with our knowledge. So this is one of the reasons why we established the tri-chapter, so we all can be involved in this out here. Funding. Again, millions and millions of dollars are coming out of Cancer area and the Ojo Encino area. It's going to the state, to the federal government. Very little is going to the Indian Latis. Nothing is coming back to the community. Look that up. I guarantee you nothing's coming back. Oh yeah, maybe a little bit to the state, but we have to apply for that. We can use that money to fix my pothole road going to Ojo Encino. Mr. Eichel knows about that. That's been in progress for the last 5 years. Finally, they're doing it. Respect. There is no respect out there. Industry comes in, do whatever they want. And that's what we're looking for right now. If there's some things develop out there, we need that respect. We talk about water. Something happens up there in the Kelser, Ojo Encino area, it's going to run down this way. 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, you're going to see it here. So that's one thing I understand, that good report that the gentleman did earlier. But again, we are on the reservation side. This was all Indian country at one time. The federal government put us on the reservation. They put a line around us. Now the federal government's going in and take what they're supposed to have, we are supposed to have. And you know, it's starting all over again. So help us out. We're willing to work with you again. Like I say, the tri-chapter is going to come together and work with the counties. and also the working groups too. Again, like I say, we're so far away from the Navajo, our capital of Navajo Nation, that we really can't get help out here anymore. So we're looking to ourselves to establish some of these regulations. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Samuel Sage. I'm the Community Services Coordinator for Counselor Chapter. Tonight I'm here to tell you firsthand the impact that my relatives and my people are experiencing, all because of greed, money, oil extraction. In the community of counselors since 2014, we have been overrun by oil and gas companies. The first thing the community members started complaining about is the roads. The oil trucks, they take up the roads, they block the roads. Community people can't pass, so they're stuck there for hours, just like a regular traffic jam. All for the simple reason, because 5 trucks ahead of them, one individual is putting on tire chain. It gets even worse during inclement weather. When it snows, rains, and mud, the county is doing as much as it can to help us. But as far as industry goes, they tear up the roads. Large potholes, sometimes there are puddles of road to where it looks like an irrigation ditch. You don't know where the potholes are. You can actually build a car going between O and Sino to counselors, because that's how much parts people lose just traveling one way. A lot of these trucks, transport trucks, are overloaded. There's no enforcement on the weights. They do what they please, just like George was saying. People started complaining about the roads. The second is the air. The foul, smelly odors that come off these well sites. Sure, it's nice and everything else when you draw it and talk about it with pictures. But actuality, we had to get out and do our own, use our own infrared cameras on these well sites. The majority of those wells are not put together well. They're not even put together good. That's where all the foul smell comes from. Our community members started complaining about respiratory problems. That has increased. The cancer rate within our community has gone up. You begin to worry when all of a sudden you start having 3 or 4 funerals, all particularly for young ladies and middle-aged ladies because of cancer. You begin to worry about your relatives when you don't see 1 or 2 of them coming to the post office once, twice a month. You ask about them, they're in the hospital. When school started, our chapter president, Harry Domingo, is a bus driver over at Liebrook School. He said, you know, of all the times that I've been driving the bus with these young students, I've seen more young people using respirators, inhalers than any other time on the bus. We had to do our own air sampling, air quality testing. We had to go through the Navajo Nation Human Research Board to get permission to do those things. And at this time, we have completed the first part of the air quality testing. We're completing the second part. We can't release those information until we get an authorization from the Navajo Nation Human Research Board, which will probably happen in December or January. At that time, we can share with the county just what we're talking about. And then as far as we have actually tested like 16 homes, air quality, inside and outside. They exceed the national level or a lot of municipal homes across the United States. The air is bad. It stinks. Water, we have not received any reports of any contamination yet, but we keep telling BLM, just wait, it will happen. And when it happens, gloves come off. We're not going to mess around. Because these industry companies, the companies, they won't tell BLM, they won't tell you all that they contaminated certain wells. They'll just pack up, quietly leave, abandon the place, and leave the mess with everything else. There has been a large explosion on July 2016 in Naizi. WPX was the main company. They did their own investigation because they said that they only lost less than 5,000 gallons of gas, oil. If it's more than 5,000, it gets reported to the state and other entities. They said it was under that. But that explosion with all the chemicals, there's 34 chemical barrels, those blue tanks, that burned for 4 days. Afterwards, they closed everything up and paid the residents within the area and moved on. They didn't really say what caused it, and now we learned that one of the employees went out for a cigarette, struck a match, and that's how it blew up. It was their own carelessness. Industry will not let you know any of that stuff. The majority of the oil or the industry say that they have emergency evacuation plans. And we keep asking them, show us one, give us a copy. They don't. So within this area, with this amount of residents living this close together, you know, it's going to be a very, very disastrous incident if anything happens. Most of the lands that surrounds Counselor is BLM, so most of the leases are done by BLM. BLM at this time do not have enough people for anything. They say they have enough inspectors, but you don't see no inspectors out there. A good example is there's a water treatment that they call it. It's where all the wastewater goes into that one tank. One day we saw a bunch of activities, and next day we saw more and more activities, but no trucks going in and out. Come to find out that that tank was leaking wastewater. And we informed BLM, they didn't know anything about it because the company didn't even bother to tell them. State inspectors, BLM inspectors went out there. And the next thing we saw is them burying a bunch of plastic bags right next to the tank. What you read about in North Dakota is beginning to happen around Counselor area, especially when it comes to fracking. The chemicals that is being used and the filters that they were using up there has now come around Naizi and Counselor area. Those filters, they're used one time, they're radioactive. They don't tell people that if you see a black sock-like, bigger than a large socks, laying on the side of the road, leave it alone. That's radioactive. They don't tell that. The companies are told to put it in a plastic bag and to get rid of it. To our understanding, they get dumped in dumpsters by the gas stations out there, 7 to 11, wherever they can find dumpsters, because the company does not want to pay to have those filters put away. So we're beginning to see a lot of that. When you talk about economic development, there is no economics out there. Most of these companies, they bring in their own workers. And if they get underbid for a cheaper contract, that's when they start bringing in the immigrants. And they pay them $5 an hour and work them 18 hours a day. So there's only one person that's making all the money. Like George said, is that there are millions of dollars coming out of there through the extraction and sale of the oil. The majority of it goes to the U.S. Treasury. A little bit of it trickles down to the state. A few of those come down to the county. So, and then us, where they're taking all of the minerals from, we don't get nothing. Nothing at all. So those are some of the things that you'll be looking at. An increase in crime is very true, because those workers work 18 hours plus a day. What keeps them going is meth. They can go on for days by using meth. Those man camps, they are real. The reason why I say that is that for a while, 2 or 3 years in a row, as I'm driving out from Farmington, all of a sudden you see 1 or 2 Anglo teens or young ladies running along the highway back to the west. And it kind of makes you wonder, what are they doing out here? You don't see them. So you look around, they have made their escape from whoever kidnapped them. 550 is one of the major routes for sex trafficking transports. There's been places that have been raided in Farmington along the way, so you're looking at those. Here, there'll be an increase in crime and everything else. So those are some of the things, just a few of the things that I'd like to share with you at this time. One of the main things is that the commissioners to allow tribal consultation. We live in those lands. We live off of those lands. We're not going anywhere. Out here in the city, it's different. Everything is convenient. All the benefits that you all are gaining from the oil and gas extraction, we live with the impacts. I'm going to encourage each and every one of you commissioners to contact Counselor Chapter. We have a reality tour that we would like to take you on, to actually for you to experience what it is like to go through or live by an area that has been really been devastated by the impacts of the oil and gas. 5-10 minutes into the tour, you may start experiencing headaches. We've had visitors from all the way from Japan, Spain, go on those tours. So I'd like to encourage each and every one of you. We're not going to make you take the whole tour, but if people start getting sick, then they can come back. We have one individual, Daniel So. He's the one that takes the individuals out on tour and stuff. And we're encouraging our New Mexico State Congressional delegation to go on those tours too. So far, they told their staff, they said, you go. So after you experience it, then I'll go. So, but I still like to encourage you. With this amount of time and all the agencies that we've been talking to from Counselor Chapter, I would like to also invite the commissioners to come out to the EPA symposium out at Library School on November 9 and 10. EPA from the Washington office, Washington D office, and also EPA from San Francisco branch office. They'll be out there coming up. So, because we went and visited with them and talked with them and showed them our air quality testing. We have these high readings. How can you assist us? So that's why they're coming up. Okay? So I'd like to thank you very much for giving me this short time. Thank you.
Thank you, and I appreciate it. And be sure we have your contact information. Thank you. Okay, who would like to speak next?
Good evening, everyone. My English name is Kurt Riley. I'm the appointed governor for the Pueblo of Acoma. I'm also the chairman of the Southern Pueblo Council of Governors. Thank you, first of all, Chairman and members of the Commission, for allowing me to speak to you this evening. I know you've had a long day. I showed up early to observe your work group earlier this morning or this afternoon. It's been a long day for me as well. I've been up since 4 o'clock. I also attended the El Pueblo Council of Governors meeting in Santa Fe. And so now I'm here at the request of my fellow governors that reside within Sandoval County. When I was appointed governor, my uncles who have also served gave me several pieces of advice. The first one of them was, you're going to carry your people for 1 year. The second was, make sure that you think about all of the people. Do not segregate those individuals. I want to offer those pieces of advice to you, the commissioners, as well. Think about all of the people, not just your districts, because they all live in Sandoval County. Don't discriminate. Just because most of the population lives closer to the Rio Grande doesn't mean, as commissioners, you should segregate all the others and not keep them in mind as well. One of the things that have been brought up during these conversations has been tribal consultation. I used this example this afternoon with a BLM representative. I asked this question: how do we as Native people recognize our sovereignty? The United States did that. In colonial times, the first treaty between the U.S. and another sovereign was the Delaware tribe. Where do the Delaware people live now? They live in Oklahoma. At the time, during colonial times, in order to iron out differences or to protect another sovereign, they made treaties. And as such, we as Native people, whether they did it intentionally or not, recognized through that initial treaty that all Pueblos, tribes, and nations in this country are truly sovereign. For the Pueblos here in New Mexico, we didn't go through that route. Our first introduction into the Europeans was through the Spanish. I would ask the commissioners, do you have a very good idea of that relationship with the Spaniards? The Spaniards issued each of the pueblos in New Mexico a cane, a symbol in European countries of a sovereign. When these lands were then transferred over to the Mexican government, they also, the Mexican government, issued us canes. Finally, the United States government issued us, through Abraham Lincoln, the famous Abraham Lincoln cane. The state of New Mexico then also issued us canes. All of these governments, through that act, recognize us as a government. As one person said, we as Pueblos, tribes, and nations, at one point, this was all of our land to use, not to own. And as such, we had to care for the very land that provided us sustenance, clothing, medicine, water. So fast forward to today. You've heard from individuals off of the Navajo Nation the consequences of oil and gas extraction. I too encourage you, if you don't want to go any further than the boundaries of Sandoval County, you can't experience what it's like for oil and gas extraction. The Pueblos here in New Mexico are trying to protect Chaco Canyon. I was fortunate enough to go up on an airplane and actually see oil and gas development from the air. It's like a spider web around Chaco Canyon. Each lease property, because it's proprietary property developed by oil and gas companies, they own that road. No one else is allowed to use it. They have individual rows to their leased property. And in doing so, they disturb the land. So why tribal consultation? Anywhere you put a shovel in New Mexico, you're more than likely to hit an item of cultural property, cultural patrimony. You have a neighboring Coronado monument along the Rio Grande. To quote one of my attorneys, all archaeological sites are cultural sites, but not all cultural sites are archaeological sites. In one of the ordinances, it reads that notice to tribes will be given if there's any development within a certain feet of a cultural site. So I would ask you, commissioners, if you go out on the land or your staff, will they be able to identify cultural sites? If the answer is no, then that's why tribal consultation is so important. Because only we, the Native people, can identify those for you. What is going to happen if you do not? What about an inadvertent discovery of human remains? How is this commission going to handle that? Are you going to give notice to the appropriate Pueblo? And how are you going to address reburials? What if you discover a Pueblo ruin? How are you going to handle that? Or are you going to choose to ignore it? Or are you going to depend on an oil or gas company to do it for you? I think we as Native people know very well that if you depend on the oil and gas companies to do this for you, They won't do it. As you've heard from the residents more closer to oil and gas industry. That's why tribal consultation is so important. There was an example that I heard at one time. If you allow oil and gas without yourselves monitoring it, it would be like wherever you worship and there's an adjacent cemetery, someone else allowed for oil and gas extraction without any input, without any notification. How would you feel if your family was buried there? These are the things that sometimes don't come to mind when revenue is the objective. As I said, the Pueblos here are open. All Pueblos are open to collaboration and partnership. But if we are not brought to the table until after the ordinance is put in place, how are you going to deal with these things? There are federal laws that protect items of cultural patrimony, human remains, and their proper mitigation. The Pueblo of Acoma is very involved in the Navajo Gallup Supply Water Project, bringing water to Gallup and branching off into for the use of Navajo residents. My cultural experts are walking the land ahead of the pipeline. Already they have mitigated ruins. They have also discovered human remains. And because there was planning and consultation before, the Pueblo of Acoma has respectfully reburied those remains. These are the things that I hope that this commission will consider. Much less the science, the geology that has been presented to you. One last thing that I want to mention, an ordinance is one thing. There was talk about enforcement. What about the monitoring? As you heard, if you allow oil and gas industry to self-monitor, you've heard some of the consequences. And with the recent deregulation or rollback of some of the EPA regulations that allow increased venting and flaring of methane gas, where's those vapors going to go? They're going to go wherever the wind blows. New Mexico and other areas are well known for their night sky. We have pictures from Chaco Canyon. The night sky disappears because of burning off of methane. The Permian Basin to the south already has extensive oil and gas development, but that's in a somewhat rural area. As you move north, the population increases. The greater risk to human beings, animals, plants, water, the land increases. And so I would encourage you to go and see the oil and gas development in the northwest corner of New Mexico so that you can smell the methane gas. You can see the extensive crisscrossing of roads. You may not live there, but that's your responsibility as commissioners. Like I said, care for all. Do not discriminate just because you don't live in the area. Think about the long-term consequences and protect those that elected you. That's what I want to leave with you. So I thank you very much for giving me the time. And you have a very difficult decision. Welcome to my world. Because that's what I have to do. And we as Pueblo governors, we deal with the same issues. Lack of money, wanting to put in infrastructure, trying to create jobs, bettering our schools, maintaining roads, caring for forested areas, protecting water sources, but most importantly, protecting our cultural resources. These are the things that Pueblo governors have to deal with much less money, much less capacity. And so I've been in your shoes. I am in your shoes. So please take these words of advice and use them as you see fit. Tawa, thank you.
Thank you. And you represent which tribe or Pueblo?
Pueblo of Jemez.
Yes, thank you.
Chairman, Commissioners, good evening. My name is Paul Clark. I'm the Director of Natural Resources for the Pueblo of Jemez. And Governor Paul Chinana is unfortunately not available to be here tonight.
We're happy to
Since-
have you.
Thank you. He sends his regrets of not being here tonight to speak to this important issue. He has sent me here tonight on his behalf, and he has sent me with a statement to read. So if I may, I'll just read from Governor Chinana. Commissioners, as Governor of Jemez Pueblo, my first obligation is to protect Mother Earth and to honor our tribal members, their health and their physical and spiritual well-being. Included in this obligation is to protect and honor the natural and cultural resources which have sustained us throughout millennia and which are needed to sustain us today, tomorrow, and into the future. As oil and gas development in the county will undoubtedly affect Jemez Pueblo and all of us living in the county, I'm glad to have this opportunity to share my view, to express my concerns, and to express the direction I believe we must follow. Today, Jemez Pueblo resides on limited tracts of land bounded by restrictive red lines on a county map. But these lands are only part of the lands that our ancestors lived on, where we raised our families, grew and hunted our food, where we worshiped and prayed. They're cultural sites and burial grounds belonging to our ancestors, not only on present-day Jemez lands, but also off of Jemez lands in Sandoval County. Many of these sites are documented and many are not. These sites remain sacred to us and deserve to be protected. I believe this is not unique to only Jemez. This is one of the reasons that Jemez Pueblo and all regional pueblos and tribes need to be consulted and given adequate time to review and comment on any proposed project that has the potential to impact these lands where such sacred sites may lay. Jemez is here tonight in unity and support with their brothers and sisters of the pueblos and tribes throughout the county. Any ordinance adopted by the county must ensure that adequate and effective protections are in place to protect surface and groundwater. Must ensure that tribal lands and tribal mineral rights are not trespassed. Must ensure that air and water quality monitoring is part of every permit, including baseline data comparisons. And must ensure that permittees remain in compliance with pueblos and tribes that have EPA standards as treatment as states. To reach our goals successfully, with the best future for all of our children, we must walk side by side, not one in front of the other. I give you my commitment that I, my lieutenant governors, and my staff will be made available to the greatest possible extent to work with you and other pueblos and tribes in consultation to best serve this county and as many communities, including Jemez Pueblo. Thank you, Commissioners. That is from Governor Paul Chinana.
Thank you for your comments.
And thank you.
Governor, good evening.
Good evening, Chairman. You recognize me.
I do.
Thank you very much
I've seen you before.
Thank you very much for giving me this time again and opportunity to come before you, commissioners. And I'm Governor Anthony Ortiz. And you could remember of what I have spoke about already in the past, last year. And then as Governor Kurt Riley has spoke about his leadership within the organization. He is the chairman of the SPC, and I am the vice chairman of the SPC in 2018. Anyways, concerns about the oil and gas ordinance that's been out there floating, I would say, and all the ordinances that have been presented or research that has been done, and my concerns are the similar as what I have already spoke about, cultural sites, quality of air, water, and all that natural resources that have been spoke about a lot of them already. And we have a big responsibility, as Governor Riley has spoke about, and obligations that we have to fulfill as tribal leaders, and taking care of our people, making sure that they are living in a safe environment. And not only do we have responsibilities for our people, to our people, but as well as anybody walking on the ground of this earth. If my people are going to get impacted negatively with those fracking or drilling of oil, everybody's going to. Your own people are going to get impacted too. Because why? No matter how many research has been done, or no matter who scientists, experts are, there's no guarantee of protecting the groundwaters. Once it gets contaminated, water doesn't stay in one place. It's going to travel. It travels. No matter if it's upstream, uphill, it's all over the place. So that's why it spoke about water being essential for everybody. It is. And that is our life for everybody. So please, I'm asking you, commissioners, to hear us. Don't just listen to us. Hear us of our concerns. And before I walk back to my chair, I just want to make this statement here. Of all the times that I was in office as a governor in San Felipe, this is something different I'm experiencing, commissioners. With our relationships in the past, me as a tribal leader of San Felipe and the U.S. commissioners or other commissioners that are in your seats, this is something different I'm experiencing. Relationship, meaning the oil and gas is separating us. And I don't want that. I want us to work together. We all have responsibilities to take care of people. So remember that. Let's get back to that stage and level to have that relationship. Thank you.
Who else would like to speak? Good evening, and tell us what tribe or pueblo you're from.
Good evening, Chair, Commissioners. My name is Dwayne Herrera. I'm the governor of Cochiti Pueblo. So let me start off by saying thank you for allowing us to come here, my brothers here. And we are all, my brothers have spoken what they need to say. Now it's my turn. And I also call you brothers because you are in the same position I am. You have constituents here in Sandoval County that you have to take care of. Same way with me. I have my people in Cochiti Pueblo that I need to take care of. And I just want them to have a safe environment that they can thrive in. And I hope that's the same thing that you're thinking of for your constituents here in Sandoval County. It's the health and the well-being of people that we're thinking of, not just for my community, but for all the community around New Mexico, the whole world. We pray, not just for our community, we pray for everybody on this earth, that they live happy, they grow up healthy, and for the younger kids, younger generation to come, that they have a place also to grow up. So with that, I just want you to think about your constituents here, their health, and what legacy you will all leave them. Ultimately, it's up to you to have the last say. So that's all I have to say, and thank you for taking time to listen to my comments. Good evening.
Thank you, Governor. Good evening, Governor.
Good evening. My name is Thomas Makita Jr. from San Domingo Pueblo, current governor. And I would like to have my brother introduce himself.
My name is Lieutenant Governor Fidelio Tenorio, Sr.
Good evening, Commissioner. Everybody, with all due respect, we're all in this together as far as water. And I'm glad that one of your commissioners has stated before, water is life. And that is very true. That holds dearly to us also. And it should hold dearly to your hearts also. With that, like my brothers have spoken before me, it's an honor to be appointed as governor. As governor, we have a lot of responsibilities. We have a lot on our shoulders. It changes from day to day. I'm pretty sure you're in that same position as far as all the things that you have to deal with, issues, problems throughout the county. By that same token, we go through that also in our pueblo. It's every day, like I said, it changes. And it never goes away. It's a challenging job, but we have to deal with it. Just like, for instance, what we're doing now, the challenges that we have with the water issues, and also with oil and gas. We have to determine which is better for our people, not only for us that are here today, but for our future generations, our kids that are yet to come. So with that, let us all together make a wise decision for our future generations. As a governor, I'm here to protect my people, not only for my people, but throughout the state and throughout the world. We pray, like my brother has said before, all our prayers are not only for our people, but for throughout all mankind. So with that, I'm going to say thank you, and my brother here, Lieutenant Governor, will have something to say also. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. Good evening, everybody. Just remember, and let's all think about our Lord up above. They put us on this great world to protect, to love, to serve the better way as we can, to live prosperous, to protect the nature what He brought us to this world. We gotta protect them. Now we're living in here. We've gotta make use for it, whatever is left here. Protection. And we don't want any more destruction. We went through that a long time ago. From Chaco Canyon, now we're living over here in our Rio Grande, along the Rio Grande. And this is where the water is. That's why we're living over here, because we're farmers, cattle growers. That's why we need water around, good water. Yeah, there was some water at Chaco Canyon a long time ago. That's what our forefathers say. But when the drop came a long time ago, we have to move. And this is where we find the water, along the Rio Grande. And we stay here along the Rio Grande, mostly all the 19 pueblos. And that's how we love our land and our water. This is all natural resources that we got, so we got to protect them. Let's all work together. This is a new start. This is the first time for me as Lieutenant Governor from Santo Domingo. And I'm going to try my best to do the best for everybody. So help me God. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, Commissioners, County employees. My name is Benjamin Arsalas. I am the Lieutenant Governor for the Pueblo of Zia. I'm here on behalf of the Governor, Anthony Delgarita, who is now having a council meeting as we speak at the Pueblo. And they're here talking about membership ordinances and enrollment of new infants to the tribe. As we speak, our tribe grows from families who are having children, and those children are going to take our tribe into the future. And we have to fight to keep our land and our water and our air pure so that they will have something in the future. This is my first time as a Lieutenant Governor. And as my brothers said before, we were put on with a heavy responsibility to lead our people the best that we can. Some of our tribal leaders have education and no business. I can say that for my governor. He is an administrator and he knows business. Before I became Lieutenant Governor, I drove a motor coach for Paradise Tours out of Albuquerque. So I saw the Navajo Nation, how they're troubled with oil, and down south in New Mexico with their oil problems. And I see all the different Indian country across America, west of the Mississippi to the Pacific Ocean, of how they're taking advantage of it. I saw a lot of things like that. So in the past, we've had a tribal administrator that made a deal with some oil company. Now we're fighting to keep that oil company from going forward with their fracking drilling, just so we can keep our water pure the way it has been ever since I was living at Zia. And now I'm trying to do that so we can keep it pure for our children so they can have it in their future. They gave us this land to have. Now we're fighting to keep it our land and to keep it clean, because that's all we have. We have to fight our way through day by day just to keep our land. Zia is not a rich reservation, rich pueblo, rich community. But that was one of the things that they told us when that company said, well, we find oil on your village, you guys are going to have a lot of money to buy this, you have to do this, you have all you want. But when that oil's gone, all we're going to be stuck with is the waste. And that's not much of a future. So you have to help us and see what's going on in Counselor, what's going on in Santa Clara. And I thank the governors from Santa Clara and from Acoma for coming all the way to help us here in Sandoval County. That's what we do. We stick up for each other because we are all we have. So listen to our words, commissioners and chairmen. We're doing the best we can to keep what we have. And hopefully, with your help, that we can do that and it make it a lot easier. So that's all I have to say for now. And thank you for your time, and thank you for listening to us, governors and lieutenant governors, in your commission meeting. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. So who would like to speak next? I know this guy. Representative.
Yes, sir. Hino Mamkima Hirimba. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Governors. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak this evening. We're doing a little bit better than I think you thought we were going to be doing, Mr. Chairman. You told me to bring my sleeping bag because we'd be here till noon, till midnight. But I think we're doing all right.
We probably still will be.
And I'm also here to report that the Sox are probably going to go to the World Series, and the Denver Broncos aren't going to probably go to the Super Bowl. But they are going to win tonight. So I just want to provide a couple of comments to the discussion that has been taking place this evening. And when Mr. Phillips spoke earlier, he talked about and gave the sentiment that it's up to you. It's up to you, implying that you 5 gentlemen on the board will have the ultimate decision to whether or not there will be oil and gas exploration in Sandoval County. And it seems to me the more appropriate statement should have been by Mr. Phillips and even some of those after that, it should be up to all the people in Sandoval County through their consultations, through their input, through their directions, and their full support. And I'm talking about the towns that I represent as a state representative for New Mexico House District 65, including those folks and all the towns, which include Bernalillo, Cuba, Corrales, Algodones, Peña Blanca, Placitas, Jemez Springs, Rio Rancho, Cochiti Lake, San Isidro. The pueblos that include Jemez, Zia, Cochiti, Santo Domingo, San Felipe, Santa Ana, Sandia, Laguna, San Ildefonso, Santa Clara, the Navajo Nation, which includes 3 of the tri-chapter folks, Torreon, Ojo Encino, counselors, also includes the Hickory Apache Nation, which I also represent. Those groups of Native American constituents that I have is in fact the second highest population of a Native American grouping in one county in the United States of America. And that is an extraordinary point to make simply because I've watched this play out, as you and I talked earlier, sir, that I've watched this play out for the past almost couple of years now. And while we thank you, my constituents thank you for your attempts at tribal consultation, those are genuine, those are sincere, and I appreciate it, and as well as do they. But nonetheless, it perplexes me as to why, at our highest level, federal government consults with tribes on any action it's planning to take. State government, through its state tribal consultation, also does the same. So at its most grassroots, basic local level, in this case, the county, it should have been the first direction that you should have taken. But you're learning, and I get that. And it's a work in progress. But the fact that you are making attempts as a board, as a chairperson, as a vice chairperson, to make those commitments to the folks that you represent, maybe not in your district, but as a whole, is much appreciated. And where I'm going with this is that tribal consultation is that where you've attempted to go and meet with those tribes. Some have been successful, some have not been successful. I hear you and I understand where you're coming from. But let me make the point that a science team is not government-to-government consultation. A citizens group team is not a government-to-government consultation. Government-government consultation is that when you, in your attempts, like you've done sincerely, you go and you commit those by visiting those folks that are within your district. And what I'm asking of all of you tonight, as I've watched this play out for the past couple of years, is allow me to help you. I know I've been here in front of you to criticize, to point fingers, and in some cases, raise my voice. If I've offended any of you, I apologize. But at the same time, sometimes we gotta take measures to try to get points across, even when those measures sometimes aren't the best received nor the best delivered. So where I'm going with this is that if I can help you, allow me to do that. Let's make that legislative fix that we talk about. The discussion that was had earlier about the Oil and Gas Act, that it's more of a conservation management type of statute. And if you wanted to change it to environmental protection or water and aquifer type of protections, we can do that legislatively. Furthermore, I want to just say, looking at this process from the outside as an outsider, I would hate to have this type of ordinance flux, this type of ordinance discussions define your tenure as commissioners, for allowing the divisiveness, the potential lawsuits. Don't allow yourself to be poster children of political haste or public distress. And I'm asking you now, what's the rush? And I know that you said, well, we've already done this for the past 2 years. I get that. But I think the way that we started perhaps wasn't in the right means, that we've learned a lot from those past 2 years, but now you have a true opportunity to really make some great strides through really vast collaborations with tribal folks, with state folks, with interested parties throughout the counties and the towns that I mentioned earlier. And so let's do this right. And Mr. Chairman, I asked you earlier, and I told you earlier that if you have a time frame to which you want to make this happen, and you read that out to me, I would ask you, out of respect for the folks in the pueblos in this room and those in the state, that many of them observe religious and cultural shutdowns, if you will, the last part of the fall into the winter. And so should you elect to make decisions in November and thereafter, I don't think you'll be met with much enthusiasm and appreciation from any of those tribal folks that look to this board now for some type of collaboration and appreciation. So with that, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, and commissioners, and you left when I gave a shout out to the Sox for going to the World Series.
Did they win?
Not yet, but I want to offer you that I'm here to help you, that we can do this together, and not allow lawsuits to define this type of ordinance to be passed. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, all commissioners.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. I might be the last one, so you're doing good by the time.
We still have more work.
My name is Regis Pecos. I'm the co-director of the Leadership Institute that is based in Santa Fe, and I have the privilege and the honor to work with all of the 19 Pueblo Nation, some of whom you've heard here this evening. Our role is one that examines policies and laws to assess, analyze the impact upon the full spectrum at the federal and state levels. And so we interact quite regularly in examining these policies and laws and their impacts. I first want to express my appreciation for what has been a very respectful and civil and principled evening, as I hope you appreciate the collective wisdom of our Pueblo leaders that have eloquently shared literally hundreds of years of history and all of their lived experiences that result in the compelling nature of one looking for ways to best communicate the concerns and the enormous responsibility that they have relegated to them to be the protectors, to be the guardians, to be the stewards of the people and lands that our Creator gifted to us. And so I appreciate the beautiful and eloquent ways in which they have communicated their concerns to all of you and the way in which you all have responded. What I want to share with you, I served as the executive director for the State Office of Indian Affairs for 16 years under 4 Republican and Democratic governors. And I served as the chief of staff for 12 years to the Speaker of the House, the late Ben Lohan. And as the time when he passed, I became the Director of Policy and Legislative Affairs for the Office of the Majority in the New Mexico House of Representatives. And in all of those 30 years of work and the work that I now do on behalf of the Leadership Institute, what I want to share with you is that as reference has been made to the waves of sovereign interactions that date back to Spain, to the Republic of Mexico, and the United States, that what is a common thread in the experience of Pueblo nations and tribal nations in the United States, but more so explicit to Pueblo nations, is the interaction that at the highest level of international law, as was shared, Pueblo nations were recognized for the legitimacy of their self-governance systems and institutions, for which Spain, the Republic of Mexico, and the United States, one, bestowed the acknowledgement of the highest order in recognizing them as sovereign nations. And similarly for the Navajo Nation, the Jicarilla Apache in this region, as treaty tribes, similar commitments and obligations of the highest standards of United States law was accorded to them in the recognition through the treaty-making process that they adhere to daily in their fulfillment of their responsibility to their nations and to the people. Where I want to go with that historical context is that in the most recent United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples that the United States is party to, clearly acknowledging the most fundamental elements of government-to-government principles of genuine consultation, so that the kind of issues brought forth is really all about the way in which governments interact to ultimately fulfill their responsibility in stewardship, in the protection of the quality of life for their citizens, for their constituents. The United States has drawn over many years, and more recently in this era and period that history will define as the period of self-determination, beginning with President Nixon. And from Nixon through Bush 1 and 2 and Clinton, more recently with President Obama, every executive, Republican and Democrats, have clearly articulated and delineated through executive orders, through legislation they proposed, that at the highest level of interaction of the principles of government to government is what they're asking be provided at this level. The delineation of shared responsibilities articulated in countless executive orders speak to the necessity in making decisions that accords governments the opportunity to look at balanced outcomes of their decisions, to mitigate where there are issues that potentially have adverse impacts to the environment, to a way of life, to the citizenry, to the health and well-being and welfare of their citizens. What has been established at the federal level is what we have taken over the last 30 years at the state level to mirror that federal framework, to amend laws in state statute, to create new statutory construction that clearly recognize similar government-to-government principles, similar policies articulated in the engagement. Amendments were made so that as the governor of the state has the opportunity to share in a joint session with a full protocol accorded to give the state of New Mexico. The Chief Justice of the state Supreme Court is accorded the opportunity to give the state of the judiciary. Our congressional members are given the opportunity to state and share the state of Congress and the nation and the states and their relationships. The laws were amended statutorily to include the recognition and the acknowledgement that the governors of the Pueblo nations, the president of the tribal nations, also
should be accorded the full privilege and right as sovereigns within sovereigns in New Mexico to be afforded the opportunity to also give the state of tribal relations. So that framework mirrors what is at the federal level. It mirrors what is recognized at the international level. And more recently, I really commend your leadership, Commissioner, because you are part of what is called the Native American Caucus of County Commissioners. The realization of that caucus of county commissioners, one, through their vision and wisdom, one, articulated a policy for consideration by the entire New Mexico Association of Counties. One, to create the opportunity to have a working knowledge of policies and laws that affect the interaction of sovereign nations at this level. By accepting a policy through the collective wisdom for the New Mexico Association to task the development of a curriculum, one approved by New Mexico Edge by the New Mexico State University, that I was the author of, requested to create a curriculum to provide a working knowledge so that the kind of opportunities for newly elected commissioners statewide might provide them a working knowledge of the policy and the framework of federal law, to not deviate from long-established policies and the foundation and the framework, so that the kind of interactions that governors and tribal leaders are asking of you, to underscore that they cannot be spoken for by the science team, that the science team cannot negotiate for them, to be spoken for as if they didn't know what was best for their nations and their people. Nor should they be reduced to, one, be part and be spoken for by citizens, because they are sovereign nations, equal to and greater than state governments, is what case law has defined their role within the larger governmental framework of the United States of America. And at the most down to the ground level, the interactions of sovereign nations with county governments is a relatively new experience, as it is for you. What they are asking is not unprecedented. It is not something that does not exist, that provides for a clearly delineated process of engagement among units of governments, inclusive, in this case, of county governments. You may be new to this experience, but their lived experience of hundreds of years, where there was the absence of consultation, has left huge footprints of devastation, even on the lands of our reservation in Cochiti. To see the devastation and the destruction in our own lands by the 10th largest man-made lakes that devastated one of the most holiest places. To see the huge footprint of the Los Alamos National Laboratory that today continues to contaminate without the kind of restrictive enforcement to maintain, to mitigate contamination, the largest body of water we are all dependent upon. That the lack of consultation in the extractive industry of coal, in the extractive industry of uranium has left what are defined as legacy tailings of reclaimed lands that continue to devastate the quality of water, the air, the soil, the vegetation, the living things that people are dependent upon. So all around are encroachments that are evidence what happens when there is not the kind of genuine engagement of units of government in their decision-making authority and responsibility to minimize, to mitigate for our collective well-being and welfare. And so what they are asking is really not anything greater that the state affords them. It is not anything greater than what the United States affords them.
it is not anything greater that the United Nations acknowledges at the most fundamental level the indigenous peoples, nations here way before the United States of America, that they should be afforded a basic fundamental right to equal rights and justice, to address the long history of colonialism, the vestiges of colonialism, of imposition, in forceful ways demonstrated across the disconnect of their lands, policies that prohibited the speaking of their languages, policies and laws that literally prohibit them from practicing their own religion, policies and laws that dismantled their families, policies and laws that attempted to disconnect communities, and policies and laws that attacked the very essence of the continuation of their humanity, that resulted in federal intervention by Congress to protect Indian children, known as the Indian Child Welfare Act. Because at one point this country purposefully conceived the taking away of children by federal policy and federal laws, introduced something horrific called the American Indian Adoption Project, that the mentality and the supremacy born out of colonialism could be justified to take children because someone decided that a better future for Indian children was not with their own families and their own communities. As just one example of the horrific nature of the experiences, not even touched upon, but what they have eloquently touched upon, Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission, is to compel you to do the moral right thing, the ethical right thing, the political right thing. Because when that doesn't happen, the last and desperate response is often to the courts, where the outcome often is there are winners and losers, unpredictable, who will win and who might lose. And I don't believe that any one of you as members of a commission, on behalf of your service to your constituency, to the citizenry, nor do they want to take the risk that the outcome is adverse to them. So the heart of what they are asking is what is afforded to them at multiple levels, and what they would most desire is for this commission to follow the guidance of other units of government that have resulted in evolving policies and laws to build a foundation and framework of genuine interaction among sovereigns, among governments, as decision makers, to yield the best possible outcomes for the mutual benefit and interest based upon mutual concerns genuinely addressed. And that request is not unprecedented, or is not too much to ask, because they exist at other levels of government. And to you, Mr. Chairman, to you especially, Commissioner, and to all of you, thank you for your patience. Thank you for, one, listening. And as one of the governors, Governor Riley from Acoma, in the meeting today, told the representative who came all the way from Utah, from Bears Ears, to share with them his concern that they had fundamentally failed consultation, and now they were backed up against the wall with threats of development, that had we adhered to consultation, perhaps collectively, he said, we could have prevented a potential devastation of some of the most pristine lands, homelands, and migration routes of our people. For him to come from Utah to New Mexico to express that failing, for the United States service representative to come before them today to underscore and express we are wanting to engage with you because of proposed federal activity to adhere to the policies in place so that we can be fully informed that what is being proposed might have adverse impacts and consequences to your cultural resources and cultural sites. And that happened just today. And Governor Riley responded that he welcomed that opportunity because the awesome responsibility that they have is that when they fail largely by the sheer forceful politics, unwilling to appreciate the duality of these shared responsibilities, he stated that when we fail to fulfill the sacred trust as protectors, as guardians, as stewards of these places gifted to us for the maintenance and sustenance of a quality of life by the Creator, that when we fail, we are a disgrace to our forefathers, were his exact words. And I just want to end that the United States of America is built upon the principles of democracy. And fairness and engagement and affording minorities often in this democratic process is an incredibly highly valued part of American society that makes this nation great. But I would remind all of us here this evening that when you walk into this building and you see along the walls downstairs of countless numbers of American Indian veterans who gave their lives and sacrificed the ultimate with the idealism that this country that they serve proudly might at some point in their history return the mutual respect that governors, leaders are asking for your genuine consideration, to give them the opportunity to realize that at this level, that the full comprehensive incorporation of the policies in the ordinance that defines a process of genuine engagement might be afforded them. And if we fail, as Governor Riley said, we will be a disgrace to all of those individual veterans, men and women who sacrificed their lives because they had an idealism of what this country stood for. That to deviate from these principles would be a sad and shameful lack of consideration to do what I think, given that what they're asking exists within the larger American governmental framework, not to consider this, to respond, to accommodate, to be the right thing to do. Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity.
I guess one point. One point I would like to make is we have been reaching out and some tribes have not been responding, and we would appreciate your response. Because as this gentleman knows, we've met already twice with San Edmund and Sandia and San Felipe and San Domingo, and we'll continue to do that. But we need a response when we reach out. Thank you.